Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. On the wall surrounding Konoha, there are several watch posts. At one of these posts, two Chunin were frozen in fear. The reason was a gigantic three-headed snake coming towards them, and smashing into the wall. After the snake broke through the wall, ninjas from both the hidden village of Sand and Sound came rushing in. Some of them were killed by the Konoha ninjas that had rushed there, but the element of surprise was on their side. The snake also went into the village, crushing houses wherever it went. I will not let you interfere with Orochimaru-sama's plans. Your fight is with me, White Wolf. Kimamaru said, and pulled a bone sword out of his shoulder, while activating his cursed seal. Angled lines appeared on his body, and Tenshi sensed a huge increase in chakra level. Kimamaru held up his hand and bone came out from it, forming a spear. What the? Tenshi thought before he was forced to dodge a stab from the spear. He didn't react fast enough to avoid the sword swipe though, but managed to catch it with two kunai. But Kimamaru just smirked, applied a little more pressure and cut right through both of the kunai. Tenshi didn't see well enough to see what happened, but he knew that his kunai was broken, and he had a cut across his chest. He's too fast and I can see well enough. Right now, seeing only distracts me. But can I fight without being in a meditative state yet? Haku hasn't been able to run circles around me for a while, but still, Tenshi thought, holding his chest and trying to analyze Kimamaru's strength. He is a talented taijutsu user. Being able to move fast enough that I can't see it. His weapon, whatever it is sharp enough to cut through my kunai. At least I think that's what he did. I don't want to use my mask yet. Let's try this guy out a bit first. Tenshi thought and quickly formed some seals. Kaden. Gukaku no, Tenshi called and shot a large ball of fire towards Kimamaru, who formed seals of his own and thrust his fist towards the ball. A shockwave came and dissipated the fireball. Tenshi didn't know why he was surprised. He used sound waves to knock away the air, killing the fire. What about this then? Tenshi thought and formed seals again. Daibikufu no, he called and water particles in the air condensed around him and formed a puddle. From the puddle the water blast shot towards Kimamaru, who dodged to the right, going so fast that Tenshi had problems keeping up with his vision. Damn, he's fast. But so am I, Tenshi thought and rushed towards Kimamaru. He jumped clear over Kimamaru and swung around with a roundhouse kick. Kimamaru responded by slashing and stabbing Tenshi at the same time, but was surprised when he popped into the smoke. Kage Bunshin he managed to think before he felt excruciating pain in his back. Tenshi stood behind him, pushing a Rasengan into Kimamaru's back. Tenshi released his control and the Rasengan shot Kimamaru straight into the wall. Tenshi didn't relax though. He felt that instead of diminishing, Kimamaru's chakra signature only increased. This fight will drag on. If I hold this state for much longer, I'd lose. How could I never realize I become a bit slower when I meditate? Meditating is a calming exercise. This state dulls me. I have to depend on my radar and chakra sphere. Tenshi thought, while observing Kimamaru, who emerged from the rubble. Kimamaru had become very monster-like. His skin had darkened to ash-grayish, he had darker lines around his eyes, but most noticeably was the huge bone-like spears coming out of his shoulders, the fin-like appendages over his spine, and his tail. Orochimaru must be behind that. Must not underestimate him. He is from that bone clan, Kagaya or something. To be able to survive my Rasengan like that, I need to be able to break his body open and attack from within. Otherwise his body will be able to break just about any attacks. The Chidori would probably be able to kill him, but unless I can get under his skin, Rasengan will just grind away his skin, leaving his bone and the rest of the body. I need to exit this state, and fight with my radar and sphere. Tenshi thought and Kimamaru was confused when his body relaxed then tensed. Tenshi made some seals and Kimamaru could feel a faint pulse of chakra. What's he up to? Better not wait to find out. Kimamaru thought, gripped his spine and ripped it out. Tenchi was confused for a moment. What the hell was that? He pulled out another bone. Tenchi thought, and another pulse of his radar confirmed it. A bone that acts like a whip. What the? Tenchi thought and jumped back when Kimamaru whipped his spine towards him. Tenchi didn't hesitate to jump back, finding that he could move well enough even without his sight. Haku would be proud, Tenchi thought while forming seals. He ended in the tiger seal and blasted a shot of fire towards Kimamaru. The ball impacted and exploded, casting up dust. Kimamaru came out of the dust cloud, a bit singed but okay. He swung his spine and caught Tenchi, who looked surprised at the spine wrapped around him, capturing him and biting into his sides. Hana, flower, Kimamaru called, and his hand grew and morphed into a drill-like spear. He rushed and thrust the spear into Tenchi. Tenchi coughed, blood flying from his mouth. I got you, Kimamaru said, not bragging, just stating a fact. Naruto pulled his kunai out of a sound nin's back. He grimaced at the sound, but ignored it and turned to see Rin place a green glowing palm on a sand nin's head, and the nin slumped to the ground, obviously dead. Rin looked up and spotted Naruto. Naruto, I need you to go after Sasuke. Hurry, he will be killed if you don't. This is an A- rank mission, go now. Rin said and Naruto nodded, before speeding off after the Uchiha. He didn't see the sound squad that started following. Sakura and Ino saw Naruto speed off, and both silently wished him luck before turning back to their own battle. A mean-looking sound nin grinned at them. He stopped grinning when Ino announced that she used without him seeing, due to the fact that she hid her seal making behind Sakura's back. Shinhaisa Suru no, full power. Ino called, and the last thing the sound felt was a melting feeling, and then his mind shut down, permanently. Kimamaru stared at his kill. Why would Tenchi smirk when he was dead? Shit. Kimamaru managed to think before he felt a searing pain in his back. He quickly jumped away from Tenchi, turning to watch a dead Tenchi and a very much alive, although grim-looking one. Then the dead one melted into a puddle of something dark and murky. Kawarimi, Kimamaru stated. Tenchi didn't acknowledge him, instead he seemed to look around, searching for something. He's blind, yet looking around. How can that be? Kimamaru thought, confusion showing on his face. Tenchi, for one, wasn't confused. He used his radar to sense the area, but turned his head instinctively. I need to end this soon. Tenchi thought, sensing the battle around him, in which many Konoha nin were in trouble. Tenchi turned back to Kimamaru, tensing again. Sorry, but I can't let this drag on. Tenchi said, his voice changing, darkening and freezing as more and more of his mask came out. Kimamaru was taken aback by the wolf mask, which seemed to glare at him. When the mask was finished forming, the white wolf flexed his hand. Well, then, he said and disappeared. Kimamaru was shocked at the increase in speed. The next thing he knew, he felt a foot in his face, sending him flying backwards. Sweden. Tenchi called, but Kimamaru didn't hear the name of the. He did, however, feel the searing pain that came when something made of water hit his back. It felt like being whipped, only much worse, like salt was added to the whip. Kimamaru flipped, and shot some bullets made of bone towards Tenchi, who seemingly stood still, but the bones just flew through him. Kimamaru paused to assess the situation, and involuntarily he gave a shiver at the sneering wolf in front of him. Tenchi formed a few seals, and sped up. Kimamaru was only just able to see him, thanks to the cursed seal, but was unable to dodge the punch that hit him. Even having reinforced his bones to be as strong as steel, Kimamaru felt and heard the cracks that appeared from the punch. How can he punch that hard? Kimamaru thought as he staggered back. Again he was unable to dodge, and the next punch hit his chest, cracking a rib. Coughing, Kimamaru flipped backwards, but not before making some spikes of bone stick out of his legs. As he flipped, the bone spikes slashed at Tenchi, who didn't dodge. The result were vertical slashes, one on each thigh, two that went from his stomach to his chest, and would have continued to his face if the mask hadn't stopped them. When Kimamaru landed from his flip, he was immediately greeted by two fists, one to the face and one to the gut. Tenchi had completely ignored his wounds, instead opting to follow Kimamaru and give the same bone-cracking punches. Kimamaru coughed up some blood, but managed to make some spikes come out of his upper body. Tenchi seemed to disregard this and punched again. He broke off one of the spikes, but got his hand pierced in the process. Jumping away from Kimamaru, Tenchi calmly grabbed the bone spike that stood out of his hand, and pulled it out. How can he just do that? He acts as if he doesn't care about his body. Kimamaru thought. He didn't feel too well himself, feeling the cracks in his bones heal. He didn't like fighting someone that could crack his bones from a simple punch. This fight is over, Tenchi said, his tone of voice sending chills up Kimamaru's spine. Naruto realized that he was being trailed and cursed himself for going alone. Now what? He thought, planning furiously for how to deal with the pursuers. He was getting more and more frustrated before his face split into a grin. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Sakura punched another sound nin, and smiled at the satisfying, although disgusting crunch. She was forced to jump over the now deformed sound nin when a sand nin sent a futon at her. The result was that the sound nin was split in two. Sakura grimaced at the sight, before dodging another futon. Persistent, Sakura thought. The sand nin landed in front of her, and was about to launch another futon at her when they heard. Futon. Dai Te Tama grand air bullet, and a rather big air bullet hit the sand nin, killing him instantly. Sakura looked over and saw Asuma wave at her. She nodded gratefully before forming seals. Doden. Doryuden. Earth Dragon Missile, Sakura called, and a dragon head of mud came up behind her and began to spit mud projectiles towards some sound and sand ninjas. Kaden. Karyuden. Fire Dragon Missile, she called, and a quick burst of fire came from her, engulfing the projectiles and turning them into lethal flaming mud balls. Of the 6 nuns that were Sakura's target, only 2 survived. Ino wasn't doing so well. She was surrounded by rather unfriendly-looking sound and sand ninjas. Okay, what now? Come on Ino, think. There has to be something I can use to get out of here. Ino thought and racked her brain for something, anything. But before she could think of something, the enemy ninjas jumped towards her, kunai drawn. Ino gasped and began forming seals for a last-ditch effort, when a huge hawk swooped down and grabbed her, lifting her away from the attacking shinobi. Ino blinked in confusion a few times, before she heard a melodious laughter. So, you are Ten-san's fledgling student. A female voice said, and Ino looked up from her position in the hawk's talons. The first thing that struck Ino was the sheer size of the bird of prey. It was large, about 20 meters from beak to tail feathers. Ino wasn't sure about the wings, but she thought they were around 50 meters. The talons were easily as large as Ino's legs. Then she noticed who had spoken. It was a woman, and she was sitting on the hawk's neck. The woman had red hair in a long horsetail that reached almost to her behind. She had red, sharp eyes, a slightly angular face, and was built lightly. She wore a brown cloak with a Junin outfit under. Who are you? Ino asked, and the woman grinned. I'm Kara. Nice to meet you, fledgling. Kara said with a grin. Fledgling. Ino thought, but before she could say anything, Kara formed seals. Kaden. Ryuka no. She called, and a dragon of fire erupted from her and went towards the ninjas below them. Some of them got away, some didn't. Hold on, fledgling. Kara said, and the hawk soared higher before landing on the roof of the stadium. It released Ino, who hurriedly got up and looked at the hand Kara offered her. Ino smiled and allowed herself to be pulled up on the bird, who took off again. Let's show these guys what 2 kunoichi can do. Kara yelled. Yeah, Ino yelled back, the rush of flying affecting her. A squad of sound nin were pursuing who they thought were a weak and unskilled Konoha genin. There were some problems with that, though. One genin was a student of Konoha's strongest Junin. 2. The Genin was the vessel for the Kyuubi. 3. The Genin was Uzumaki Naruto, Konoha's most hyperactive, surprising ninja. As such, they walked straight into a trap, consisting of several wires, exploding tags and nets. And after the resulting explosion and screaming, the 3 surviving sound nuns looked up and saw 5 Narutos, standing on 4 rather hungry-looking foxes. The Narutos waved before puffing out in a cloud of smoke and the foxes lunged. Screams came again, before silence. Naruto grimaced as he heard the screams, knowing he caused them. Damn it, Kit, I wanted to eat them. Kyuubi grumbled, pacing back and forth in his cage. Shut up. I have to catch up to Sasuke Tem. I can't stop and summon you, besides, you'll probably get to fight anyway. Naruto shot back, before speeding off. Just drop the weights and get a move on then. Kyuubi growled. Naruto smacked his head, not believing he actually forgot about that. He formed the ram seal and instantly felt the difference. Running much faster and easier, he made good time and was starting to catch up. He sniffed his nose, and caught the scent of 2 people fighting, neither was Sasuke. I'll have to take a longer way. Don't want to end up in a fight. Naruto thought. He could have sworn he heard Kyuubi whine in disappointment. Shut up, furball. You'll get to fight soon. Naruto sighed and redirected his route so that he passed the combatants at a safe distance. Sasuke stared in horror at the monstrosity in front of him. Gaara had transformed into some sort of raccoon made from hardened sand. What is he? He took 3 Chidori and is still standing. Sasuke thought, horrified. He gasped and just managed to dodge out of the way when Gaara sent a huge sand claw at him. Without the Sharingan, I would have been dead already. Sasuke pointed out to himself, suddenly very glad for his blood-red eyes. But that burst of chakra it took for Sasuke to activate the Sharingan, made the cursed seal spread, and he stiffened in pain, falling down on a branch in the tree he had been standing in. The seal, Sasuke thought, and grunted in pain as the seal spread and covered half of his body. My body won't move. Sasuke thought and could do nothing except look at Gaara, who was flying towards him, ready to crush him. The monster that was Gaara had an ecstatic look on his face, while slobbering all over the place. That, along with his crazed eyes, made him look very dangerous, and very insane. Right before Gaara hit Sasuke, Gaara was introduced to Naruto's foot. Hey, I've caught up. Naruto said while panting slightly. He glanced at Sasuke and formed a cage bunshin that went and checked him over. You all right, Sasuke? Naruto asked. Sasuke grunted as the clone leaned him against the trunk of the tree they were in. What is he? Naruto thought, looking at Gaara. He's like you, Kit. Only his demon, Shukaku, has made him insane. Che. That damn raccoon always was a nutcase. Kyuubi replied. But he doesn't look like a human at all. Naruto shot back. He's transformed. He's using Shukaku's chakra and sand to make himself that body. Kyuubi replied. Is he strong? Naruto asked. He got the impression that Kyuubi was rolling his eyes. Shukaku is the one-tailed demon. I am the 9-tailed demon. You know the tails represent how much power we have. You do the math. Kyuubi replied. I meant, oh, never mind. Let's just go wild. Naruto thought diaresis. Finally, Kyuubi said. Naruto formed the seal for Cage Bunshin, and 6 clones came to life. They jumped towards Gaara, who used his huge claw-like hands to grab them. Now, the clones called. The real Naruto had snuck behind Gaara using clones as stepping boards, and trusted a Rasengan under Gaara's tail, while calling out, Konoha's supreme taijutsu move, 1000 Years of Pain, Rasengan version. The result was that Gaara's tail was ripped off, and he was sent spinning into a tree. Naruto grinned but was forced to dodge sand projectiles that Gaara sent towards him. Suna Shuriken, Sand Shuriken, Gaara called and shot more sand projectiles towards Naruto, who was forced to use some clones as shields. Sasuke, Close your eyes. Naruto called while forming seals. Sasuke was quick to comply. No. Naruto called, and the blinding flash came. Gaara, who had jumped towards Naruto, roared in pain, and crashed into the tree Naruto had stood on. Temari, who had been observing from the sidelines, was amazed. He's winning against Gaara's transformed form. What is he? She thought. Gaara was not happy. His ass was sore. Luckily the sand had absorbed most of the impact of whatever the annoying blonde had used. Still he was sore, and his eyes were hurting, and he had trouble seeing. I'll kill you. Gaara roared. When his eyes stopped hurting, and he opened them, he was surprised to see clones. Lots and lots of clones. Taju Kage Bunshin no, the Narutos called. It had to be at least 1,000 of them. Time to beat the crap out of you. Let's go. Uzumaki Naruto Renden 2000 versions. The Narutos called, while kicking Gaara up into the air, and hitting him 2 times each. After they were done, Gaara fell limp to the ground, his sand body all but destroyed. Now we will use our feet and give you a 4000 version. The Narutos called. How is he so strong? Gaara thought before calling on more of Shukaku's chakra. Kit, look out. You feel that? Kyuubi asked. Yeah, I know. He's calling on more chakra. Naruto answered and prepared himself. Just in time, too, since not a moment later, a huge claw shot up and destroyed all the clones, sending Naruto flying towards a tree. His fall was cushioned by Sasuke, who had managed to move just enough to help him. Sasuke, Naruto said, clearly surprised. All that, and he just got right back up. What are you going to do, Naruto? Sasuke asked. Naruto replied by looking at Gaara. He had transformed to look like the demon sealed inside him. The demon shape was huge, just as tall as Gamabunta, which was somewhere between twice and 3 times as tall as the trees. A huge tail swished behind the demon. Oh no, it came out. The perfect form. I have to get out of here. Temari thought and started to run away. You forced me to do this. Die. Gaara's voice came from the demon, and sand started to gather around Naruto, preparing to crush him. Had not Naruto managed to throw Sasuke away, the sand would have caught him too. Only have time for one try. Naruto thought, and started to frantically form seals before swiping some blood that had trickled out of his mouth. Die. Sabaku, Gaara began, but Naruto interrupted with a cry of Kuchio's no jutsu. A huge puff of smoke came, where the sand around Naruto was blown away, and a crash as trees were destroyed. When the smoke cleared, Naruto stood on top of Kyuubi, who looked around and grinned, his 9 tails swishing happily. Ah, out at last. Better late than never, right, Kit? Kyuubi said and Naruto snorted. Gaara and Sasuke stared at the huge fox, which easily stood 3 times the height of the trees of the forest they were in. Kyuubi. But it was killed. Naruto can summon it. Just how strong is he? Sasuke thought. Gaara had a different opinion. Interesting. You are interesting, Uzumaki Naruto. He roared. Gaara then appeared on top of the sand demon's head, and formed some seals. This is for entertaining me. Forced sleep no, he said and slumped forward. The eyes of the sand demon spun and changed from the pale yellow they used to be, to bright yellow, and the demon laughed, a high shrill laughter. And that's Shukaku. The medium fell asleep. Kyuubi said. Huh? Naruto asked. Shukaku's vessel can't sleep, since Shukaku comes out when they do. Also he eats their soul. The vessel tends to become insane because of that. Well, Shukaku, long time no see. Kyuubi called and the sand demon looked at the fox demon. Kyuubi, I heard you were defeated. Pathetic Foxy-chan. The Tanuki said and Kyuubi growled. Instead of chatting, perhaps we should fight. Naruto said and Kyuubi rolled his eyes. Sure. Whatever. Let's roll, Baka Tanuki. Kyuubi called and rushed towards the sand demon. Kyuubi moved so fast, Naruto almost fell off. Shukaku moved one of his arms to grab Kyuubi, but the fox moved away, bit into the arm, and ripped it clean off. Kyuubi threw the arm away, while whipping Shukaku with his tails, the hair on the tails standing out, forming needles. Shukaku tried to retreat and fire off a huge air bullet, but Kyuubi simply destroyed the with his tail and continued the whipping. Each strike removed huge chunks of compressed sand from Shukaku's body. Shukaku tried to strike back with his remaining arm, but the nimble fox slipped away. "Oi, Kyuubi, stop playing, and defeat that thing," Naruto called. Kyuubi almost looked disappointed. "Oh well, I guess I shouldn't play any longer. Kid, listen, when I say so, jump up on Shukaku and punch that kid awake. That should force Shukaku back into the kid," Kyuubi said, and Naruto nodded. "Sure," he said. Kyuubi opened his mouth and roared, fire erupting from his mouth, striking Shukaku, who had managed to raise a shield of sand. The sand was instantly turned into glass, and the flames reached the sand demon. Kyuubi then rushed towards Shukaku, jumped behind him and bit onto the sand demon's neck. "Now, Kit," Kyuubi called, and Naruto jumped towards Gaara. Sand rushed towards him, but a quick burst of fire from Kyuubi stopped the fire, giving Naruto a clear way. "Wake up, already," Naruto yelled and hit Gaara in the face, the hit strong enough to wake the sleeping demon vessel. Gaara blinked as he was snapped out of his sleep, and just heard Shukaku roar in anger at being shut inside the seal again. "Kit, beat that bastard up. I'm out of here," Kyuubi said and vanished back into the sea. "Sure thing, furball," Naruto replied and rushed towards the still recovering Gaara. Gaara managed to use some sand to stop Naruto from reaching him. "Damn it, I have to stop him," Naruto told himself, fighting the sand that threatened to crush his wrists. Then he remembered the Jiraiya taught him. "Shunshin. But I don't have a focus point, and I can't form seals. How am I supposed to use the then?" Naruto asked himself. "Idiot. When did you ever follow the rules?" Kyuubi asked, and Naruto grinned for a moment. "I'll kill you," Gaara growled. Naruto looked up, and into Gaara's eyes. "Why?" he simply asked. "Why what?" Gaara asked back. "Why do you kill?" Naruto asked. "I'm a weapon. My father sealed this demon into me before I was even born. I am a relic of the past which the old geezers want to get rid of. Killing is my purpose as a weapon. As long as there are people in this world to kill, my life will hold meaning," Gaara said. Naruto shook his head. "You sound almost like my sensei. He is a weapon as well. He was raised as a weapon, and has lived as a weapon. But he formed himself a life to be proud of. He has precious people, whom he fights for. You just use your weapon status as an excuse to kill," Naruto said and almost broke the sand restraints. Gaara stared at him. Why do you fight so much?" Gaara asked. "You and I are the same. We both have a great burden, placed on us by our fathers. The solitude, the hate. It's hell, isn't it? A hell my precious people saved me from. My girlfriends, my sensei, Rin-ne-san, Haku-chan, Ero-senin, Bakken, Jichin, Iruka-sensei. They all saved me from that hell. That is why I fight. I will protect them. I love them, and they love me. That gives me the strength to go on," Naruto said and focused all his willpower on Gaara and the Shunshin. "Shunshin no Jutsu," Naruto yelled, and he disappeared from within the sand restraints and reappeared in front of Gaara, hitting him with his own head, forehead to forehead. Gaara's eyes were wide in shock, while blood trickled down between them. The sand they were standing on, still in the shape of Shukaku, crumbled and they fell to the ground, trees breaking their fall. On the ground, Gaara found himself unable to move. He was totally drained, hurt, and his head was reeling with what Naruto had told him. He heard movements towards him, and managed to tilt his head to see Naruto crawling towards him. Why are you so strong?" Gaara asked weakly. Naruto glanced up at him, and Gaara was surprised to see tears in his eyes. "That hell of being alone, it's so cold, isn't it? can understand your feelings so much it hurts. But thanks to my precious people, the few people who acknowledge me, I can live on, protecting them. Naruto said weakly, and Gaara found himself thinking of his brother and sister. If I fought to protect someone, would they, he thought, but was interrupted by the arrival of Sasuke, who landed next to Naruto. That's enough, Naruto. You fought well, Sasuke said and glanced up as Temari and Kankuro landed next to Gaara. They looked like they were contemplating fighting, before Gaara spoke. Enough. Let's stop, he said, and his two siblings looked at him in surprise, before lifting him up. Gaara took one last look at Naruto before he and his siblings jumped away. Naruto fell into blissful darkness. Gaara was still thinking over Naruto's words while being carried by Kankuro. He decided to give it a shot. Temari, Kankuro, I'm sorry, he said weakly, but both heard it. Neither of them could believe their ears though. That's okay, Kankuro said, too surprised to say anything else. This fight is over, Kimamaru thought, jumping slightly back to judge what his opponent would do now. So, Kara is here. Time to end this. First gate. Kai. Tenshi thought, releasing the restraints on his muscles. He pulled out several three-tipped, and started throwing them towards Kimamaru, who dodged. When he had dodged them all, Kimamaru noticed something. 1. Tenshi was holding an explosive tag. 2. The kunai he had dodged were scattered around him at regular intervals, some closer to him than others. 3. He could no longer see Tenshi. Looking frantically around for any sign, Kimamaru suddenly felt something being smacked on his face. He managed to rip the explosive tag off and destroy it before it blew. What he didn't notice was the tag Tenshi had placed on his left thigh. It blew up, ripping Kimamaru's leg clean off. As he started falling down, Kimamaru caught a shimmer to the right. Shooting some bone bullets towards where the shimmer was, he was caught completely off guard by the hand that suddenly came out of nowhere and grabbed his lower jaw. Had Kimamaru been able to see through his body, he would have noticed that he had fallen backwards so that his body was above one of Tenshi's Hiroshin kunai. Tenshi didn't waste a moment executing his plan. After grabbing hold of Kimamaru's jaw, he punched said sound nin's head as hard as he could, while pulling on his jaw, again as hard as he could. The result was a sickening sound as the jaw was pulled out of its socket. Kimamaru would have yelled in pain, had he been able to, but Tenshi's next move didn't allow him. When Kimamaru's jaw had been dislocated, Tenshi plunged his hand into the sound nin's mouth and made a Rasengan. The result came instantly. Kimamaru didn't have time to register anything other than something entering his mouth, before he died. Tenshi didn't show any sign of disgust at what he had done as he let the limp body go. Instead he focused and used his chakra sphere to find all of his kunai. When he had collected them, he turned towards where he sensed Tsunade's chakra signature. But he didn't sense Sandame's, and Orochimaru's was fading. Tenshi quickly jumped towards where he had been originally headed, and reached the Anbu standing there just in time to hear the barrier go down, and someone try to escape. Go after them now, Tenshi ordered the Anbu and went into what appeared to be a forest on the roof. In there he found a tired Tsunade, and a dead Sandame. If Tenshi had been able to see, he would have smiled at the peaceful look Sandame had on his face. Konoha was in ruins. The invasion had destroyed a lot of buildings, and a lot of ninjas had been killed in action. Miraculously, all of the Rookie 9 had survived, mostly unharmed. Tenshi was relieved that Rin, Haku, Naruto, Sakura and Ino didn't have any lasting injuries. It was the day of Sandame's funeral, a cloudy, sad day. Tenshi arrived together with Rin, Haku and Team 7. They took up their spots next to Kujiki, Sandame's widow. She was taking it surprisingly well. Tenshi thought it was because of their old age. The funeral for the Sandame Hokage, as well as all those that fell in battle, will now start. One of the advisors, who had been a teammate of Sandame, said, and a bell struck several times, telling the whole village the start of the funeral of one of the greatest ninjas the world had seen. As they each went up one and one, or in Tenchi and Rin's case, two and two, and laid down a white flower in front of Sandame's picture, they each remembered fond moments with the wise man. When Tenchi remembered his conversation with his superior about Rin, he squeezed her hand, not wanting to let go of anything. Rin squeezed back. Naruto looked on in sadness as Iruka hugged a crying Konohamaru. He was a bit startled by two hands sneaking into his own, but gave his girlfriends a weak smile, which they returned. After the funeral, everyone began the work of rebuilding the village. Working together, putting differences aside to accomplish a common goal. Tsunade smiled as she saw that, knowing Sandame would have been proud of his village. Shizune stood with her at the Hokage monument, smiling along with her mentor. Their smiles widened when they saw a big hawk take off from Tenchi's house. Tsunade and Shizune thought they could see a blonde speck on the hawk, and rightfully assumed it was Ino who was the summoner. That Kara, always so carefree, Tsunade thought, before she turned to where she sensed the approaching advisors and Jiraiya. Briefly bowing, Tsunade straightened herself and wondered why they approached her. What do the advisors want with me? Tsunade asked, mirroring Jiraiya's words from earlier, although she didn't know that. You should already know without us telling you. Homura, the old man out of the two advisors, said. Konoha is in a bad situation now. Suna has officially stated that Orochimaru set them up, and has surrendered to us. He continued. With Konoha in the state it is in now, we had no choice but to accept the surrender. Our power has declined enormously. First with the loss of the White Wolf, and now with this invasion. Kaharu, the female advisor, joined in. Tsunade looked at her, wondering what she meant. What are you talking about? I realize the council think of Tenchi as their little weapon of mass destruction, but he isn't dead. From what I heard, he took on a very powerful opponent, even before resuming full active duty. Tsunade said in the advisor's side, amazingly at the same time. Before becoming blind, White Wolf would have torn that sound ninja to bits. Now it took him way too long to defeat him. His power has declined, and he has lost his edge. Kaharu said. We can't help but wonder if Haruno Rin is responsible for taking his edge off. But that is not the topic at hand here. Homura said, cutting off Tsunade's angry reply. We just got back from meeting with the feudal lord. We don't know if a neighboring country will do something radical. During the meeting, it was agreed that Konoha needs a trustworthy and strong leader. Kaharu said, and Tsunade got a sense of dread. We need a Godime Hokage as soon as possible. Tsunade, you were chosen. Homura said. Tsunade was stunned. She vaguely heard Shizune's gasp, but ignored it. You want me to be Hokage? Why? She asked. You, who are praised as one of the Sannin, are the only ones strong enough to do this. Jiraiya advised that you would make a better leader than him anyway. Kaharu said, and Tsunade glared at a paling Jiraiya. Konoha needs you, Tsunade. Homura said, but Tsunade wasn't listening. Instead she saw flashbacks of three people she held dear. Becoming Hokage is my dream. Becoming Hokage is my dream. Becoming Hokage is my dream. Three people, saying exactly the same phrase, having the same dream, all of them a big part of her life. Tsunade smiled grimly and looked out over the village. So, I will be the one to realize that dream, Hanawaki, Dan. Tsunade thought, before turning to the two in front of her. Alright. Godime Hokage. Doesn't sound too bad. Tsunade said and smiled. Shizune looked at her mentor, smiling too. Sandame Sama would have been proud. She thought. Damn my blindness. That would have been so nice, seeing Tsunade stand there, proclaiming herself as the Godime. Damn. Tenchi cursed. Rin grinned, knowing he wasn't completely sincere. I just took off a huge hat and said, this village is mine now. Nothing too big. Tsunade said, and Tenchi chuckled. Sure. And Jiraiya is a mild pervert. He said, making said man huff in annoyance. So, Jiraiya, when are you taking Naruto-kun on your training trip? Haku asked, thinking the plans had been changed with the invasion. After the village is rebuilt a bit more, we'll go. I don't want to wait too long. How about your plans, Tenchi? Jiraiya asked, chugging some sake. Same. I was thinking of leaving when you do. Less goodbyes. Tenchi replied, making Rin sigh. It's going to be boring here again. I can't believe you're leaving again, so soon after coming home. She said. At least he won't be gone for 6 years this time. Tsunade said with a grin. Still, no one better become pregnant on this trip, you hear me? Rin growled at Tenchi, who almost choked on his drink. Haku looked like she was boiling. After coughing for a few moments, Tenchi turned towards Rin, expression showing annoyance, and a badly concealed grin. Of course not. We'll wait until we come back before we do that. He replied. Poor Haku looked like all her blood had rushed to her head. Moments later, the room was filled with laughter. So this is Konoha. Itachi-sama, are you sure you'll be alright? Last time you were almost, someone in a black cloak with red clouds said. The person's companion, Uchiha Itachi didn't answer right away. Let's just go, he finally said, and the two of them entered Konoha. Sasuke was walking down the road towards the restaurant he was supposed to meet Kakashi at. In his mind, dark thoughts rolled. How did the dove become that powerful? He even summoned something that was supposed to be dead. It must be that white wolf. He has made the dove that powerful. Why him? Why not me? The dove doesn't deserve that power, I do. I'm the one who knows how to use power, not the dove. Sasuke thought and kicked a pebble. He then looked up and saw two people, one of them he did not want to see, and the other. Tenchi and Haku walked towards the shop where they usually bought the offerings to put on the memory stone. Tenchi was using his cane to walk, while Haku, ever watchful, made sure he didn't collide with anything. Sometimes she had to steer him around some villagers who wouldn't move, usually by taking his hand and leading him. Neither of the two had anything against that though. Haku noticed Sasuke coming towards them when they had passed a group of villagers. She could see his gaze focus on her hand interlaced with Tenchi's. She could also have sworn that she saw the gaze darken and could feel a small amount of killer intent. I think Sasuke-kun is mad at me, Tenchi said and chuckled. Haku looked at him before looking back at Sasuke, whose anger seemed to be growing by the second. I wonder if he is jealous, Haku said, and she could practically feel how Tenchi kept his laughter in check. I see, he replied, amusement clear in his voice. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, specifically on Tenchi and Haku's hands. And why does she always go with him? Why doesn't she go with me? She should throw herself at me like the rest of them. I'm an Uchiha, he's from a no-name clan. Unlike those pathetic fangirls, she is actually strong. She would be perfect to rebuild the Uchiha clan with. I bet she would bear strong children, Sasuke thought. By the time he had thought that, he had reached the two and stopped in front of them. I can't believe I'm doing this. Me, an Uchiha, Sasuke thought, fighting down a rather strong blush. Haku-san, would you go out with me? Sasuke asked in a clear voice. He was an Uchiha after all. Haku blinked, and blinked and blinked. Tenchi suddenly felt her squeeze his hand, almost as if commanding him not to let go. No, I'll have to say no thank you to that. Sorry, Haku replied, and she almost laughed at the expression on his face. He looked like he fell down from the moon. The same could be said about the fangirls behind him. Sasuke quickly composed himself though. He grunted and walked past them, although he made sure to thump into Tenchi, who stood his ground, making Sasuke stumble slightly. Haku looked after him, wondering if she could perhaps have been a little bit nicer. She then noticed that she no longer held Tenchi's hand. Looking around, she saw him resuming his walk towards the shop they were headed for. Hurrying after him, She failed to notice the murderous glares Sasuke's fangirls sent her. Tenchi was standing in the shop, waiting for the shopkeeper to get him the usual offering. He felt Haku walk up to him and turn to her. "You sure about that?" he asked, and she looked at him curiously. "About what?" she responded. "About saying no to Sasuke. You know, a lot of girls would kill to be asked out by him," Tenchi said, mostly amused. Haku got quiet, as if she looked at him curiously. "A lot of girls would kill to be in my shoes daily," she stated, and accepted the offering from the shopkeeper and walked out, leaving a confused Tenchi and an amused shopkeeper. Sasuke was fuming. How dare she reject an Uchiha? That's unheard of. She should. What the? Kakashi. Sasuke thought, seeing Kakashi early of all things. "Kakashi, you're early," Sasuke pointed out. "Yeah, I do that sometimes," the one-eyed Junin replied. Sasuke then noticed the shop Kakashi was standing in front of. "I don't like natto or sweets," Sasuke said. "I see," Kakashi said, not really caring. He gave an almost non-existent nod towards Kurenai and Asuma, which Sasuke had ignored up until now. They nodded back and vanished. Sasuke almost wondered what they were up to, but ignored it. "Well, I'll see you later," Kakashi said and vanished. "Che," Sasuke said, irritated by his waste of time. He was about to leave when he felt a lingering chakra signature. It was faint, but to him, it was unmistakable. Itachi. Here. Where? I'll kill him, Sasuke thought, looking around for the elusive Uchiha. He then understood. Kakashi and those other two went after him. "I'll follow them and kill him," Sasuke thought, and started to look for where he thought they had gone. Tenchi and Haku were at the memorial for the fallen ninjas. Haku had laid down their offering and both were now praying for the souls of those that had fallen. When Haku rose from her kneeling position in front of the stone, she looked up and saw that Tenchi was focused on something towards the river not far away. "What is it?" Haku asked, knowing he had better senses than her, and probably could follow things she couldn't. "Let's go. Kakashi, Asuma and Kurenai need our help," Tenchi said. Haku nodded and followed as Tenchi rushed towards the river. Kakashi was worried. In front of him were Uchiha Itachi and some unknown person from Akatsuki. As if Itachi wasn't enough, this new person, whom Kakashi thought was a woman, he wasn't sure, since she hadn't taken off her coat and hat. But either way, this new person was dangerous. First she had broken Asuma's knuckle knives, before she had forced Kakashi to copy her to stop it from killing Asuma. Then she had almost slashed him in two with a very short blade. The blade couldn't have been more than half an inch long. How she could fight with such a small blade was beyond him, but she could. And now, Itachi was talking about him doing this faster. "Oh, no, not the Mangekyo. Itachi," said a roaring voice, filled with hate, pain and rage, followed by the chirping of birds. "Oh no. Kakashi," Asuma and Kurenai thought. Sasuke jumped between trees as fast as he could. He was suddenly very glad that Kakashi had taught him to summon dogs. They were weak, but they were good trackers. Right now, he wasn't far away. The dog led him straight up to the fight. He arrived in time to see Itachi talk to Kakashi and those other two. Sasuke's eyes widened at what he heard. "You are after Naruto?" Kakashi asked, shock evident in his voice, at least it sounded that way to Sasuke. "It was an order from our organization to capture Naruto-kun. But it was not our intention to start a war here. I will do this faster than my playful partner," Itachi said, and Sasuke got the impression that the other person in black and red cloak was pouting. But Sasuke didn't care. He didn't care if Itachi was after the done, as Sasuke saw him. All he cared about was killing Itachi. Forming the seals for his strongest, Sasuke focused more chakra into the Chidori than he ever had, while activating his Sharingan. "Itachi!" Sasuke roared and rushed towards his victim. His focus only on his prey, Sasuke practically flew towards Itachi, pumping so much chakra into his legs that he thought he was almost starting up a Chidori there as well. Chidori, Itachi thought, watching impassively as his little brother came towards him. Die! Sasuke screamed, thrusting his Chidori out towards Itachi, who moved faster than Sasuke could see. With an explosion, the Chidori went off to Itachi's side. The older Uchiha was holding onto the younger's wrist, having deflected the harmlessly to the side. You're weak, little brother. Itachi said and broke Sasuke's wrist. Sasuke screamed in pain and tried to pull away. Itachi let him go and Sasuke jumped away, before jumping towards Itachi and trying to use some taijutsu he had gotten from Lee. But Itachi simply grabbed hold of his leg and broke that too. Before Sasuke could react, Itachi slammed him into the wall behind him. You are weak. Why are you weak? It's because you lack hatred, Itachi said and was about to say something else when Kakashi rushed towards him, intent on freeing his student. Stay away. Don't interfere, Sasuke said and Kakashi stopped. He looked at Sasuke for a moment before moving to attack anyway, but Itachi's companion stepped in his way. Let's let them be, shall we? They haven't seen each other for such a long time, she said and the sound of a fist hitting a body came, along with a grunt of pain from Sasuke. Kakashi saw that Itachi wasn't pulling any punches and was quickly pounding Sasuke into oblivion. But then Itachi stopped. Sasuke hesitantly opened his eyes when the beating stopped and looked straight into the Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke felt himself falling and looked around when he stopped. To his horror, he was back in his parents' house, the night of the Uchiha massacre. He saw his mother and father sitting on the floor in front of him. He tried to call them, but they didn't move to acknowledge him. Tsukuyomi. For the next 24 hours, you'll wander endlessly around that day, Itachi's voice came. Then the killing started, and along with it, Sasuke's screams. In the real world, Kakashi, Kurenai and Asuma winced as they heard the screams coming from Sasuke, knowing there was nothing they could do to help. Then the screaming stopped and Sasuke became limp in Itachi's grasp. You really didn't hold back on him, did you, Itachi-sama? Itachi's companion asked. She didn't notice Kakashi forming seals until she heard what sounded like lightning, and Kakashi yelled, Reikiri lightning edge, and trusted the big brother of the Chidori, into Itachi's companion's back. She had a look of surprise on her face, before she turned into water. Mizu Bunshin, Kakashi stated before he felt a punch to a pressure point back in his neck. He felt himself fall down to his knees, his body feeling limp and heavy. Oh my, he didn't collapse completely. Impressive, but you won't be able to fight for a while, Itachi's companion said and walked towards her partner. She flipped out of the way of several ice needles that came flying towards her. Itachi let go of Sasuke to jump away from a roundhouse kick that Tenshi sent his way. Tenshi grabbed onto Sasuke, and jumped to where Haku was standing next to Kurenai and Asuma, with Kakashi slung over her shoulder. Itachi. Tenshi growled, and readied himself for a fight. Itachi's companion also readied herself. Stop, Yuki, Itachi said, and his companion, now known as Yuki, relaxed. We didn't come here to start a war. Let's go, Itachi said and the two vanished. Kurenai and Asuma breathed a sigh of relief each, glad that it was over. Let's get these two to the hospital, Tenshi said and the others nodded. Kakashi woke up to a warm hand on his forehead. He opened his eyes and saw Tsunade standing there, healing him. Geez, one woman did this to you. Some genius you are, Tsunade scolded as she lifted her hand from Kakashi's forehead. He sat up, although shaking, and bowed his head. I'm sorry, he said weakly. Tsunade waved it off. Forget it. Even Tenshi lost to Itachi. But tell me, what happened exactly? Tsunade asked. Naruto and Ino watched in interest as Sakura healed Sasuke with Rin and Shizune observing. After a while, she stepped back and Sasuke slowly opened his eyes. He looked around, slowly realizing where he was. He sat up and the memories of what just happened came rushing back to him. Naruto, Sakura and Ino looked at each other. They didn't like Sasuke all that much, he was Naruto's rival after all, but they didn't like to see him like this. He looked so lost, so empty. Hey, Sasuke, snap out of it, would you? Naruto exclaimed, but had no visible effect on the Uchiha. Naruto was about to say something else, but then Tsunade came in. Oh, Sakura's already healed you. Good, she said, but again no reaction came from Sasuke. Where is Tenchi and Haku-chan? Rin asked, and everyone noticed Sasuke's hand twitched once at the mention of Tenchi and twice when he heard, Haku-chan. I had to send them on a mission. Tenchi's back to active duty, and he and Haku left half an hour ago. Tsunade said. Rin nodded in understanding. But what about us? Naruto asked and Tsunade half glared at him. Shut up, brat, she said, and with that started a verbal spar with the blonde ninja, much to the amusement of the others in the room. Except Sasuke. He didn't care, and his mind was filled with dark images. Most about his family and brother. Some of a brown-haired girl rejecting him and some about a man with glowing eyes, utterly humiliating him. And finally a blonde ninja, beating a demon Sasuke couldn't even compare to. I need to get stronger. Sasuke thought, and a throb of pain from his shoulder reminded him of a certain ex-Sannin. Dobi and his bitch got strong by training under 2 Sannin. If I get trained by the strongest Sannin, then, Sasuke thought, and mentally grinned at the thought of killing his brother. This place, all it does is hold me back. I don't need Konoha. I need power. Power to kill him. Sasuke thought and looked up at the scene in front of him. Tsunade had Naruto in a headlock, giving him a noogie to end all noogies. Sasuke was disgusted by the scene. Look at them, playing around. If you have time to play, then train. This place, it'll just make me weak. I have to leave. Sasuke thought and lay down to plan his escape. Sasuke ran out of Konoha. He had been released from the hospital earlier that day, and was eager to get away. That is, until 4 figures dropped down in front of him. Who are you? Sasuke asked, recognizing their forehead protectors from the Sound Village. Sasuke-sama, we were sent by Orochimaru. One of them said. We are to help you and guide you to the sound. Another said. Sasuke glared at them, before walking past them. Let's go, he said, no emotion in his voice. He didn't even take a last look at his birthplace. Naruto was annoyed. He had been sleeping peacefully, but a sudden banging on the door woke him. What? He asked while ripping his door open and saw Shikamaru standing there wearing a Chunin jacket. Come on. We have a mission. Sasuke left last night, Shikamaru said. Instantly Naruto was awake. Let me get my things, he said. 10 minutes later, they left Naruto's apartment. Half an hour later, Shikamaru and Naruto had been joined by Choji, Kiba and Akamaru and Neji. Naruto had wanted to find Sakura and Ino, but there was no time. Alright, this is how we move. Kiba up front, I'm behind him, Naruto behind me, Choji behind Naruto and Neji behind Choji using the Byakugan to make sure we aren't followed. Shikamaru said and the others nodded, feeling impressed by Shikamaru's ability to make a plan in a moment. Let's go, Shikamaru said and they took off. It didn't take long for them to start to catch up. They had come across 2 Junins, one of them the examiner for the main matches. The 2 were injured, but not in mortal danger. The team had no choice but to continue anyway, leaving the 2 behind. However, Naruto did make some Kage Bunshin to go and alert Tsunade to the fact that Sasuke wasn't alone and where the injured Junins were. We're gaining on them, Kiba said and Shikamaru nodded. They stopped in a tree and Shikamaru turned to Neji. Can you use your Byakugan to scout ahead? He asked and Neji nodded. Byakugan, he said and veins around his now white eyes pulsed and pumped. There are 4 of them. I don't see Sasuke, but there is a big barrel that I can't see into. It's protected by some advanced seals, but I assume Sasuke is in there. They seem to be resting, probably from the fight. Neji said and Shikamaru nodded. Alright, let's go, Shikamaru said and they moved out again, although much more cautiously, in case of traps. Naruto was anxious. How did this happen? He thought, while leaping from tree to tree. First they had been stopped by the Fat Sound Nin, which first had trapped them in a dome of dirt, where he sucked out their chakra. Choji managed to break out using his family. Then Choji said to go ahead, and took on the fat guy by himself. Then Neji took on the spider freak, and Kiba and Akamaru fell into a ravine with the gray-haired dude wearing lipstick. Then Shikamaru and Naruto caught up to the girl who was now carrying the barrel, but some other sound nin came and took the barrel. Shikamaru had stayed behind to fight the girl, and Naruto had gone ahead. He had caught up with the new sound nin, just as the barrel burst and Sasuke came out, although he looked different. His skin was ash gray and his hair was longer and paler. Before Naruto could say anything, Sasuke had started running. The new sound dude had stepped into Naruto's way. The new sound nin was hard to tell anything about. He wore long, baggy clothes, had lots of bandages wrapped around his head, had the same device on his arm as that Dosu guy had and had the same holes in his palms as the Zaku guy. He also had long hair, like the kin girl. What the? Who is this guy? Naruto had thought, before forming several Kage Bunshin and trying to kick his ass. The guy had simply lifted his arm and a huge blast of wind destroyed all the Kage Bunshin. That's when Lee had appeared, telling Naruto to go after Sasuke. Naruto didn't wait to be told twice. And now Naruto was staring at Sasuke, who stood on the head of the giant statue of the first Hokage at the Valley of the End, but Sasuke didn't look normal. Half his face had the cursed seal marks on, and the eye was black while the iris was golden. So, Dobi-chan has come to stop me. Sasuke taunted. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Sasuke seemed so different. His chakra didn't feel the same, it felt like a cross between Sasuke's and someone else's. Someone evil. Also, the way Sasuke held himself spoke of one thing. Confidence. Sasuke had always been arrogant, but now he looked like he felt like he was the strongest there is. Naruto knew that even Sasuke, at his most arrogant, knew that he wasn't the strongest. But this Sasuke was different. What happened to you? Why are you doing this? Naruto asked. What he got in return was a cold laugh. Dobi-chan wants to know what happened. How cute. Sasuke said and vanished from Naruto's sight. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt Sasuke behind him. Sasuke leaned against him, wrapping a hand across his shoulders. I grew up. This pathetic village only holds me back. I will never be strong in this place. Just look at you and that Hokage bitch. Playing around like kids. If you have time to play, then train. This place won't give me the strength I need to beat my brother. Only Orochimaru can give me that. Sasuke said before punching Naruto in the back. Naruto was sent forward, but flipped in the air and landed in a crouch, but once again, Sasuke was behind him. You are weak, Sasuke stated, an arrogant smirk on his face. Is this guy for real? Naruto asked in his head. I don't think you should underestimate him, although he is so stupid it reeks of him. Heck, even you are smarter, Kit. I can't believe he doesn't realize that both his brother and Orochimaru got powerful in Konoha. Kyuubi replied. Naruto decided not to reply, and jumped forward, while grabbing Sasuke's arm. Using his forward momentum, Naruto swung Sasuke and slammed him into the first Hokage's head. Sasuke strangely didn't move to get away, allowing himself to be thrown around like a rag doll. If Naruto noticed this, he didn't seem to be bothered by it, as he lifted Sasuke into the air and slammed him into the ground again. He was about to do it again, but Sasuke twisted around and punched Naruto's wrist. Naruto felt his wrist snap, forcing him to let go and jump back. Kyuubi, heal my wrist, Naruto asked hurriedly. He got an ungrateful Kit in return, before he felt Kyuubi's chakra heal his wrist. Sasuke just stood there, the arrogant smirk on his face. Naruto noticed that his Sharingan wasn't on. That's my chance, Naruto thought, and once he felt Kyuubi finish healing his wrist, he formed the ram seal and released his weights. Sasuke took a ready stance, still with the arrogant smirk, and activated his Sharingan. Naruto ran towards Sasuke, much faster than Sasuke thought he could, and punched towards the Uchiha. Sasuke dodged, but since his attention had been on the charging Naruto, he couldn't dodge the kick from Naruto's cage bunshin that had been in his shadow. The kick hit Sasuke in the head and sent him flying down from the first Hokage statue and down into the water below. Naruto jumped after and landed nimbly on the water, watching as Sasuke rose to the surface and climbed onto the surface of the water. Sasuke was surprised, and almost let it show. The Dobi managed to hit me. Impossible, Sasuke thought and formed seals. Kaden. Hausenka no, he called. Naruto formed seals of his own and yelled. Raiden. Raiden no. The lightning bolt knocked the fireballs out of the way, and the thunder clap was deafening. Sasuke had covered his head with his arms, and when he couldn't hear anything, he looked up. He was surprised to see that Naruto was standing in front of him, unharmed. But what surprised him the most was that he didn't hear anything, not even the massive waterfall behind him. Genjutsu, Sasuke thought, but pain in his ears answered his question. His thunder deafened me, Sasuke thought in horror. Hearing is an important sense, and if the Adobe planned for that to happen, then he, Sasuke thought, but was interrupted when Naruto threw 5 shuriken towards him. Sasuke dodged the shuriken, which was thrown so that they forced him to run in a half circle, losing his sight of Naruto. When Sasuke had dodged the shuriken, he looked around for Naruto, but didn't see him. His hearing was slowly coming back, but Sasuke knew he couldn't hear Naruto approach, not with the hampered hearing in Naruto's training in assassination. Damn that Tenchi. Why did he make the dove so good, and refuse to teach me? Sasuke thought angrily. He vowed himself that when he had killed Itachi, he would kill Tenchi. Sasuke scanned the area again, but still no Naruto. In a final-ditch attempt to see the elusive blonde, Sasuke pumped as much chakra into his eyes as he could. Suddenly he couldn't see straight at all, before his vision became clearer than ever. What? Oh, I see. I mastered the Sharingan. Hey, now the Dun doesn't have a chance. Ah, there he is. Sasuke thought, seeing Naruto wearing his invisibility. Sasuke charged and Naruto tried to hit him, but Sasuke saw every motion before it was done and dodged before countering with a blow to the stomach. He was surprised when Naruto puffed out in a cloud of smoke. Cage bunshin. How the? Sasuke's thoughts were rather harshly cut off by a foot slamming into his chin, knocking him upwards in the air. Several Narutos followed up, kicking Sasuke higher and higher. Sasuke opened his eyes and saw Naruto on his way towards him, leg extended for a kick. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto called and slammed his foot into Sasuke's face, although Sasuke didn't hear what he said. Sasuke was sent spiraling down towards the lake below, but twisted in the air and landed. His cursed seal flared and spread, and Naruto felt Sasuke's chakra increase. Sasuke sped off towards the Naruto's landing on the water, hitting them and inwardly cursing each time one puffed into smoke. When he hit the last one, Sasuke was shocked to see that it too puffed into smoke. Where is he? Damn my hearing. Where is he? Sasuke thought frantically. I need to hurry. He should come back soon. Naruto thought. Beat the crap out of him, Kit. Kyuubi replied. Sure. Sasuke was feeling both relieved and concerned. His hearing, he noted, was gradually coming back, although not fast. And Naruto was still nowhere in sight. Sasuke knew that was bad, and turned around in circles to keep from being caught in the back. What he didn't expect was to be grabbed around the ankles and lifted up into the air by a chain of Narutos. The Naruto chain twisted and swung Sasuke into the rock wall surrounding them. Sasuke responded with Kaden, Ryuka no, and the fire shot from him and traveled along the clones. Sasuke hoped Naruto would get fried as well. But no such luck, as another Naruto appeared behind the still fire-breathing Sasuke, and slammed his hands into his back. Sasuke was forced to abort both because of the pain that came from Naruto slamming into his back, but mainly from the fact that he was sent flying over the edge of the rock wall and down towards the lake again. But Naruto followed. Sasuke heard a faint swishing sound and soon found himself being hit over and over again by Narutos who went past him. Punch after punch landed on Sasuke's body. He could see them, but when he blocked punches, the clones would kick him, or some new clones would come out of nowhere. Could that have done something to my Sharingan as well? Sasuke wondered right before he hit the water. This is impossible. I can't be beaten by the dove. It's just not possible. Alright, let's see what the power Orochimaru gave me can do. Sasuke said, and his cursed seal spread more and turned his skin ash gray. His hair became spiked and lengthened to the middle of his back. A mark like a shuriken appeared on his nose, his eyes turned black, although the Sharingan was still there. Then Sasuke rose from the water, where about 6 Narutos waited, looking uneasy, having felt the change in Sasuke's chakra. When Sasuke stood on the water again, he suddenly cringed in pain and a hand-like wing burst from his back. Another soon joined him, giving him some really weird-looking wings. What power! With this, I can kill you, and most importantly I can kill Itachi. Sasuke said, and the Narutos slid into their ready stance. During Sasuke's transformation, Naruto stiffened and shivered. His chakra suddenly turned so evil. What's happening? Naruto asked Kyuubi. I don't know, but I think it smells slightly like a snake. Anyway, better take some chakra. He will be much stronger now. Kyuubi advised, and when Naruto felt the rush of familiar red chakra, he too transformed. Naruto got darker whisker lines, red eyes with slits, nails grown into claws and more wild-looking hair. Beat him up. And do it this time, Kit. Kyuubi said. Naruto didn't reply. Sasuke vanished and a moment later reappeared in the same spot he had stood. The 6 Narutos in front of him puffed into smoke, one after one, holding the area where they had been hit, and wearing a pained expression. Where are you now? Done trying to hide? Are you that afraid of me? Sasuke asked, and he vaguely heard Naruto laugh, but couldn't tell where it came from. Then he felt a fist crash into his head, sending him flying again. But this time, Sasuke used his hand-like wings to stop his flight and turned to see Naruto standing there. Sasuke was surprised to see Naruto having changed, but then something connected with his stomach, sending Sasuke flying again. What Sasuke hadn't noticed was the marker Naruto had placed on him when he had hit him earlier. Also, with Kyuubi giving and helping mold the chakra, Naruto could do the Shunshin perfectly. Tenshi's idea worked. Until I can do it perfectly on my own, you can help me. Naruto said to the fox, who grinned sadistically. And that means I get to fight too. At least sort of, he said and laughed evilly, which made Naruto sweat drop. What was that? Sasuke asked himself, but a memory answered. It was an order from our organization to capture Naruto-kun. Came Itachi's voice, and Sasuke suddenly realized why his brother was after Naruto. So, you have some power as well. Well, I have more. Sasuke said and rushed towards Naruto, who dropped under Sasuke's punch and drew his katana, using the only sword technique Tenshi had taught him. Sasuke found himself with a slash across his chest and had to jump back. Fast. That was so fast, the Sharingan only caught it as a blur. And what is this power that's gathered in his arm? Sasuke asked himself. Kit, watch yourself. Don't use that Kenjutsu, sword technique, without using my chakra at the same time. The damage to your muscles was huge. Kyuubi warned. Being able to sense Naruto's body better than Naruto himself, Kyuubi felt the damage as it was being done. I know. It's so fast, the muscles almost tear. Thanks for healing me, stupid fox. Naruto replied, actually feeling thankful for the fox's presence. Damn brat. Kyuubi shot back. It seems you are strong. Let's settle this, once and for all. Sasuke said and formed the seals for Chidori, but instead of the familiar blue lightning, what appeared in his hand was black lightning, and instead of the chirping of 1,000 birds, it sounded like 1,000 birds being tormented. Naruto held out his hand and a Rasengan appeared, although this Rasengan was bigger and with both blue and red chakra in it. Let's end this. Both Naruto and Sasuke said, but then a blur appeared. Kabuto. Both Sasuke and Naruto said, although Naruto was surprised, while Sasuke was annoyed. Sasuke-sama, I've come to help. Kabuto said, pushing his glasses further up on his nose. What? You sent only Genin and one Chunin after them? Tenchi and Kakashi shouted in unison. Tsunade sighed and rubbed her temples. Yes, now shut up. Kakashi, here is your next mission. Tenchi, I need to perform another test on you. Where are you going? Tsunade asked when Kakashi, Tenchi and Haku turned and walked out of the office. We're going after them, Tenchi said and waved at his boss, who sighed and pulled out a sake bottle. Damn that Uchiha. Damn that Orochimaru. Tsunade cursed, taking a huge swing of the bottle. Tenchi focused on Haku and Kakashi, who ran next to him. In front of them, Night Shadow ran, following Naruto's trail. Kakashi, Haku and I are going on ahead. I have a bad feeling about this. We can move faster than you anyway. Try to find the ones that have separated from the rest and help them. Tenchi said and Kakashi nodded. Tenchi then grabbed Haku and placed her on Night Shadow. Come on, my dear, let's move. Try not to lose Haku, please. Tenchi said and Night Shadow laughed at him. They then speed off, leaving Kakashi behind. Please be on time, he thought, before summoning Pakun and searching for wounded Genin. Help? Sasuke asked. Kabuto nodded. Yes, I have no doubt that you could win against Naruto-kun, but Orochimaru-sama doesn't want you to injure yourself. If you are injured, then you'll have to wait longer to become stronger. We wouldn't want that, would we? Kabuto said and smirked. Whatever, just don't get in my way. Make sure my Chidori will hit the dobi. Sasuke ordered. Kabuto didn't object. Crap. Kyuubi, I need more chakra. Naruto called and Kyuubi nodded. I know. Kyuubi replied and more chakra went out of the seal. The chakra started to spread over Naruto's body, burning him. As the chakra spread, Naruto roared in pain. What's happening to me? Naruto asked, but didn't get an answer. When the chakra had covered his whole body, he lowered himself down to all fours and steam rose from where his hands and feet touched the water. The red chakra formed into armor around Naruto, complete with fox ears and one tail. Bear with it, Kit. My chakra burns you if you use too much, so you can't rely on this for long. Kyuubi said and Naruto glared at Sasuke and Kabuto. Alright, Sasuke-sama, I'll immobilize him and you hit him. Kabuto said and a blue glow surrounded his hands. He then charged towards Naruto, who responded by lifting his hand and pointing it towards Kabuto. From his hand, a huge red chakra claw flew and almost grabbed Kabuto, but he managed to dodge out of the way. Naruto then ran towards Kabuto on all fours, completely ignoring the fireballs Sasuke shot at him. When Naruto reached Kabuto, he tried to punch him, but Kabuto dissolved into water and the water splashed on Naruto. Suoro no, Kabuto said and the water formed a blue sphere around Naruto. But the sphere was easily blown apart and Naruto went to grab Kabuto, but then he heard the tormented Chidori again. Turning, he saw Sasuke was almost on him. No time to dodge. Naruto managed to think before the Chidori hit him and pierced right through his right lung. Oh, you managed to avoid me piercing your heart. Sasuke said, actually feeling amazed that Naruto managed to hit Sasuke's hand with his own so that Chidori's path was altered. But this is it, Naruto-kun. Kabuto said and placed a blue glowing hand on Naruto's throat. Naruto felt his air pipe being cut, and started choking, adding to the already huge pain from having Sasuke's hand through his chest. Goodbye, done, Sasuke said as he pulled his hand out of Naruto's body and tossed what he thought was a dead body away. But Kabuto tensed when the red chakra didn't diminish. What's wrong with you? Sasuke said, wanting to get going. Sasuke-sama, look, Kabuto said and pointed to Naruto, who rose and stood. Sasuke gasped when he saw that. Kabuto gasped when he saw steam rising from Naruto's chest and coming out of his throat. His wounds are healing so fast. No way, Sasuke said. Naruto slowly raised his head and growled. His chest wound healed completely. He held out his hand and a Rasengan formed there, the blue and red chakra mixing to form a purple Rasengan with a red glow surrounding it. Sasuke growled and formed the tormented Chidori again and charged his former friend. Sasuke-sama, wait, Kabuto called after him, but it was too late. Sasuke and Naruto charged at each other, they met and battled for supremacy. Naruto suddenly drew his hand back and slashed at Sasuke's forehead protector, while Sasuke's hand pierced Naruto's chest, once again just missing the heart. The two, now released from their user's control, exploded, sending them both flying in the opposite direction. Sasuke and Naruto impacted with the rock wall on the opposite sides of the lake. Sasuke was knocked out, and Naruto wasn't much better. But he managed to stand up, although extremely shakingly. Kabuto appeared next to Sasuke and confirmed that he didn't die, before turning to Naruto, who had lost the chakra armor. Then it started to rain. First slowly, then more and more. It seems I will be the one to kill you, Naruto-kun. Kabuto said and took out a kunai with a longer blade that curved at the end. But right before charging, Kabuto stiffened, before whirling around and picking Sasuke up. It seems you are in luck. You'll probably die from your injuries anyway, Kabuto said and vanished along with Sasuke. Naruto fell down and felt darkness approaching. The last thing he saw before falling unconscious was black paws. The first thing Naruto became aware of was huge pain. Ouch. So I'm not dead then. Dead people don't feel pain. What happened? He wondered. Wolf, his mate and his bitch of a summon came and rescued you. You're in the hospital. You better be thankful for me. If it wasn't for me, then you'd be dead now. Remember that, Kit. Kyuubi replied. Oh shut it. You're just as happy that Naruto is alive as the rest of us, came Tenshi's voice. Kyuubi humphed in return. Sensei. Naruto thought. Wake up already, Tenshi said and Naruto opened his eyes. He looked around and saw that he was in the hospital. What happened? Naruto asked, before noticing that he and Tenshi weren't alone. Sakura and Ino sat next to his bed, both with tears in their eyes. Hinata and Haku stood next to Tenshi by the foot of the bed. Sensei saved you. He brought you in after he found you, Ino said and Sakura sniffed. Don't scare me like that, okay? You were so injured, even with your healing, she said and lunged at him, hugging him like her or rather his life depended on it. Naruto slowly hugged her back, and smiled when Ino joined the hug. After hugging for a while, Sakura and Ino let go and forced Naruto to lie down. Sasuke? Naruto asked and Tenshi shook his head. The rain washed away any trails Night Shadow could have followed, besides you were more important, Tenshi said and Naruto nodded. The others? He asked and everyone grew grim. Shikamaru only had a broken finger, while Kiba had an abdominal wound, and Akamaru was a bit beaten up. Nothing too serious. Neji and Choji were in serious condition when they were brought in, but are healing nicely. Thanks to the San siblings, they and Lee-san are alive. Lee-san only had some scrapes and bruises, Sakura said and Naruto was happy about that, before he shot up. San siblings? As in Gaara, Temari and, makeup guy? Naruto asked. Sakura giggled before making him lay down again. Yes. They were a part of the group from Suna that came here to sign the peace treaty. They helped, mostly because they owe us, or at least that's what Gaara said. They came and visited you but have left for Suna already. Ino said. Gaara said to say, hello, to you. I think he is taking your words to heart and trying to change. Tenchi said, clearly amused. Okay, that's enough. Naruto needs rest. Get out. Sakura said and made shooting motions. I'm happy you are okay, Naruto-kun. Hinata said and gave him a hug. Sleep well. We'll see you tomorrow. Tenchi said and waved. Sweet dreams. Ino said and kissed Naruto before leaving. Sakura also kissed him and followed. Wait. Naruto called and Sakura turned in the door. How long was I out? Naruto asked and Sakura smiled. Almost 2 weeks. Now sleep, she said and closed the door. Naruto was asleep almost instantly. That is, after sweating about getting the most amount of sleep in his life. Naruto healed fast, as always. Tsunade was amazed by the amount of abuse he had suffered in the fight. That Chidori must have been extreme. I'm just glad the brat is completely healed, she had said to Tenchi and Rin, who both shared her view. When he was released from his bed, which Shizune had to tie him to, in order to stop him from going to Ichiraku, Naruto went straight to his teammates from the rescue mission. Hey guys, how are you? Naruto asked when he entered the room. He then promptly sweat dropped. Choji was eating chips again. Neji was actually looking at the clouds with Shikamaru, who sat in a chair close to the window, while Kiba was playing poker with Tenten and Lee. Everyone looked up at him when he entered and either smiled, waved, nodded or in Lee's case, jumped up and shouted. Naruto-kun, your flames of youth, whatever Lee was going to say was interrupted when a nurse came and told him to shut up. She left mumbling about transferring into the morgue, where it was quiet. So, what happened? Kiba asked. For the next hour, everyone that took part in the mission spoke of their fights. Everyone was surprised that Naruto survived against not only Sasuke but also Kabuto, Orochimaru's right-hand man. So, what happens now? Kiba asked. Naruto shrugged. I don't know. Tsunade Bakan called me to her office to talk about that. Ouch. Naruto said and held the growing lump on his head from where Tenten had bonked him. Don't call Tsunade-sama that, she yelled, defending her idol. Naruto walked into the Hokage office, and was surprised by the amount of people there. Tsunade, Shizune and Sakura were not surprising to see. Neither were Tenchi or Haku. Or Rin, Kakashi and Jiraiya. But Hyuga Hiashi, Hinata and Hanabi, Yamanaka Ino and her parents and Tsunade's advisors were surprising. What's going on? Naruto asked. Ah, come to Naruto. Have a seat. Tsunade said and mentioned the chair next to Ino. He sat down and looked around. Everyone looked really serious. First we have to talk about Uchiha Sasuke. I have heard what happened from Naruto and Tenchi. Haku and the summoned Night Shadow have confirmed it from what they felt before arriving at the Valley of the End. Uchiha Sasuke is being pronounced as an A- rank missing 9, and is to be killed if he refuses cooperation. I assume everyone understands that? Tsunade asked, looking specifically at Kakashi. Everyone nodded. The fight between Naruto and Sasuke shows that Sasuke is not only completely lost down the path of an Avenger, but also has become very strong and has no second thoughts on killing former comrades. He is very dangerous, Jiraiya said, and once again, everyone nodded. We need to get the Uchiha bloodline back. But we can also not allow it to fall into the enemy's hands, the advisors said, strangely in complete unison. Jiraiya and Tenchi have requested to take their students with them on a training trip. Jiraiya has informed us that we have 3 years before Orochimaru can switch bodies, so I have granted their request. Naruto, you are to go with Jiraiya for the duration of the training trip. Hinata and Ino will go with Tenchi and Haku, while Sakura stays here with me. The training trip will last for a maximum of 3 years. Tsunade said, and Naruto's eyes grew wide. 3 years without Sakura-chan and Ino-chan. I won't survive, he said, and everyone, except Sakura and Ino, who both nodded in agreement, laughed. Hanabi then turned to Tenchi. So that was your plan to help? She asked and he nodded. Placing a hand on Hinata's head, Tenchi smiled. The Hyuga Council can't say anything, because this order comes from the Hokage, so Hinata won't be punished or something for going. It is my hope that if Hinata becomes strong enough during the trip, then the council will lay off her case. Tenchi said and Hanabi looked satisfied with that. Oh yeah, Ino-chan, where did that bird woman go? Naruto asked and Ino giggled slightly. You don't remember. She left already. After letting me sign the scroll for Hawks and introducing me to the boss, she left. She said that living in a city was stealing her feeling of wind. Ino said and Haku struggled to stifle a giggle of her own. She also appeared very jealous of Kachan. Sakura said and Haku struggled even more. Tenchi simply scratched his head. Alright, if no one has any other questions, this meeting is adjourned. The training trip will start as soon as possible. When everyone has said their goodbyes and healed and got all their equipment, then you are to start. The sooner you leave, the sooner you get back. Tsunade said. That night, Tenchi and Haku held a dinner in their apartment. Sakura, Rin, Naruto, Ino and her parents were invited. The Yamanakas seemed a bit uneasy at first, but soon warmed up. I don't like this. 3 years without Naruto-kun and Ino. I'll be so lonely. Sakura complained. No, you won't. You'll be so busy learning from Tsunade-sama that you won't have time to be lonely. Rin said and Sakura looked, if possible even gloomier. The same goes for Naruto and Ino as well. Tenchi said while taking a sip of his sake, ignoring the 3 now depressed genin around the table. What exactly are you going to teach Ino-chan? Ino's mother asked. Tenchi smiled almost evilly. Oh, just some things. I don't want to spoil the surprise though, he replied. Ino looked up, looking really eager. Are you going to have me master Hirishin? She asked, but looked down when Tenchi shook his head. That isn't a goal on this trip. I don't think you'll be able to use that any better than now. But, alright, I can tell you one of my goals. I want you to be able to use your family on the move. Tenchi said and both Ino and her father looked like they had been punched. Excuse me. That's impossible. Inoshi said and Tenchi chuckled. It is also impossible to be a ninja without eyes. That is what I thought, at least. He replied. I see your point. Inoshi said and Tenchi chuckled again. There is also a pretty big possibility that Ino and Hinata will come back and be more assassins than anything else, since both Haku and I specialize in that field. Tenchi said. Let's not worry about that now. Eat up. Haku interrupted and everyone complied. Later, 3 genin sat on top of the Yondaime's head, looking out at nighttime Konoha. Ino and Sakura sat with their heads leaned onto Naruto's shoulders. He had his arms wrapped around their waists, holding them close to him. I can't believe we aren't going to see each other for 3 years. Naruto said. Ino sighed and snuggled closer into his side. At least we will be much stronger when we get back. She said. Yeah, I'll be an excellent medic by then. Sakura stated. I'll probably be a Fujin user. Naruto said, thoughtfully rubbing his cheek. And I'll be an assassin. Ino said, still not knowing how she should feel about that. Yeah, you're both going to be amazing. Naruto said and kissed each girl, earning big smiles from them both. They then sat there for a while, in perfect silence. Tenchi and Rin were in the forest of death, running and weaving through the trees while holding hands. They had decided to spend the night together, just playing around. Both wore huge smiles as they ran too fast for most to see, even Chunin. No animals interrupted their little dance, which they used the whole forest for. Sometimes they would let go and jump around a little, sparring playfully with kunai flashing and clanging, before resuming holding hands and running. They kept at it for hours. The following week was spent preparing. That included a reluctant Tsunade healing Jiraiya from an encounter with Haku and her ice after she found him peeping on her. When all the preparations were complete, a small crowd gathered at the gates. Tsunade, Jiraiya and Shizune were there, along with Hayashi and Hanabi. Team 7, 8 and 10, what was left of them, as well as Team Guy were there. Rin had come, dragging Kakashi behind her. The travelers stepped forward from the crowd. Naruto stood with Jiraiya and Hinata and Ino with Tenchi and Haku. You are good now, Rin said, giving each of the travelers, save Jiraiya, who pouted at being left out, a big hug and in Tenchi's case a big kiss that had to be broken by Tsunade. Break it up. We don't have all day, she said, although she smiled at the sight. Sakura walked over to Naruto and Ino and initiated a group hug. Ino pulled Hinata into the hug as well. Rin arched an eyebrow, before resuming kissing Tenchi. Tsunade rolled her eyes, while Shizune giggled. Jiraiya giggled as well, but tried to hide it as much as possible. After they separated, Naruto asked Ino something most had wondered for a while. Ino-chan, where are your parents? Ino gave a sad smile at that. They don't like long, and most important public, goodbyes, since mom usually cries a lot, and she cried even more now, so we said goodbye at home. She said and Naruto nodded before kissing her. He then kissed Sakura as well and hugged Hinata. Alright, let's go, Ero Sennin. The sooner we go, the sooner we will be back. Everyone take care now, Naruto said and waved. Take care of my student, Jiraiya. Tenchi said and Jiraiya nodded. And you, take care of your lovely girls. He said and giggled before he started to run before Hiashi and Tsunade got a grip on him. Naruto shook his head, grabbed his backpack, gave Tenchi, Haku, Rin and Hinata a hug before kissing his girlfriend goodbye and following his sensei. Naruto-kun, when you get back, I will test your burning fires of youth. Lee called after Naruto. If your flames of youth has been diminished, I will, Guy began, but was knocked out by Tenchi, while Haku knocked Lee out. Naruto looked really grateful for that. Oh, and Naruto, if you become a pervert like him, I'll pound you into the next century. Sakura called after him. He paled and nervously waved before continuing after Jiraiya. Tenchi turned to Ino and Hinata. You two ready to go? He asked and they nodded. Hinata walked over to Hiashi, Neji and Hanabi. She gave Hanabi and Neji a big hug each, but hesitated with Hayashi. She squeaked a little when he pulled her into an awkward hug. The first hug he had given her in years. When he let go of her, he patted her on the head. Do your best and make me proud, Hayashi said. Hinata practically beamed and nodded before she walked over to say goodbye to her teammates. Kurenai turned to Tenchi with a stern, although useless expression. It only occurred to her later that he hadn't been able to see her expression. You better take good care of Hinata, Kurenai said and Tenchi smiled before nodding. You know, Hiashi, Neji and Hanabi also said that, all at different times and with varying degrees of killing intent. Haku said and Tenchi chuckled. Who'd know that little Hanabi has more killing intent than Neji? He said and Neji turned an impossible degree of red. Tsunade looked at Tenchi. You be careful. I still think it's a little early for you. Take good care of them, she said and Tenchi nodded. Yes, Hokage-sama, he replied. He then hugged Sakura, gave Rin a last kiss and turned to begin walking. Ino gave Sakura and Rin a hug each and hurried after her sensei. Haku and Rin hugged but Haku waited for Hinata, who gave Hanabi one last hug before following. Waving at their family and friends, Hinata and Ino suddenly felt strangely alone. Alright, it's time. You three better be ready. This trip is going to change our lives. Tenchi said and Ino and Hinata realized that even though most of their friends and family weren't with them, this trip wouldn't be bad. Let's do this, they thought, eager to become stronger. This was just the beginning, the real secret will unfold in the next episode. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to see what happens next. See you again in the next journey of Uzumaki Empire 2.0.